Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, a senatorial race front-runner, a household name in Philippine politics,
ang tatay ko, the late Senator Pia Cayetano,
an advocate of women's and children's rights.
When it comes to women and family issues, my advocacies never change.
With the president and his daughter endorsing her Senate comeback,
look at my track record. I will continue to fight for women, for children, for healthcare, and for education.
Senatorial candidate and House Deputy Speaker Pia Cayetano joins us live. Thank you for joining us. Sitting in for Pinky Webb, I'm Ruth Cabal. Law enforcers have yet to identify the source of cocaine blocks recovered in the country's eastern seaboard. But for President Duterte, these are proof that the Colombian Medellin drug cartel has been operating in the country. Our George Cahiles has more.
We are facing a serious problem. Pumasok na ang cartel Medellin, Colombia. Kaya nga marami na naman makikita cocaine.
From the other side of the world, President Duterte says Colombia's Medellin drug cartel is now operating in the Philippines, citing the recovery of more than 160 kilos of cocaine from areas in the country's eastern seaboard. But the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency says it has not yet identified the source of the blocks of cocaine found over the last 2 weeks since February 10th.
Itong pinag-iilanan natin na mga sindikato, yung Sinaloan Drug Cartel, yung Chinese, and itong Golden Triangle region, nandiyan pa rin. At pinag-aaralan pa rin natin hanggat makakalap tayo ng tamang informasyon para malaman natin talaga kung ano ang purpose ng mga floating cocaine sa ating karagatan.
PDEA Chief Aaron Aquino says the president could have mentioned Medellin drug cartel because based on the findings of the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, samples from the cocaine blocks recovered in Matnog, Sorsogon in January 2018 showed similar characteristics of those cocaine manufactured in Colombia.
There are some particular solvents that were used to say that it came from Colombia. Ang pagkapaliwanag ng USDA sa amin is that itong dalawang chemicals na ito, once this is being used in the production of cocaine, it is a Colombian drug cartel signature. So, kumbaga, hindi 100% na sinabi mong ito galing Colombia.
Based on PDEA's data, floating cocaine cases have been monitored in the country since 2001, but incidents became more rampant since last year, while the government's war on drugs is in full swing.
Tatlo, na teorya na titignan na natin dito, Gerd. Number one, yung transshipment point ang Pilipinas, ginagawang drug hub ang Pilipinas para ma-repack and then maibalik ito, ma-smuggle palabas ng Pilipinas para i-deliver o i-ship out sa China, sa Hong Kong or Australia. Yung pangalawa nito is yung diversionary tactics. At yung pangatlo, usually the intention nila itapon lahat yung mga cocaine sa karagatan. Para hindi sila mahuli. And eventually, babalikan nila ito para i-retrieve. Kaya lang, siyempre, siguro, hindi lahat nare-retrieve. Kaya yung iba, napupunta sa shorelines natin.
Inaasahan natin na may kasabwat ang international drug syndicate dito sa ating bansa. Kaya patuloy ang ating pagmamanman at pag-iimbestiga.
PDEA says they have been in touch with other countries as far as Australia and Belgium to coordinate on the incidents. But so far, Aquino says no similar floating cocaine cases were reported in nearby countries. Aquino says blocks of cocaine discovered on Philippine shores this month could have been floating at sea since November, given that seashells have been stuck to the nets used to hold the illegal drugs. George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
A familiar name in Philippine politics is hoping to make a Senate comeback. She pushed bills ensuring the rights of women and children authored the recently signed expanded maternity leave law and one of the lawmakers behind the passing of Magna Carta for women. Her Senate bid is backed up by no less than President Rodrigo Duterte and his daughter, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte. But are these endorsements enough for her to win a Senate seat? Let's go straight to the source of the story. Senatorial candidate and House Deputy Speaker Pia Cayetano. Good morning, ma'am.
Morning, Ruth. Morning.
So congratulations first because you're one of the principal authors of the expanded maternity leave law. So tell us about it.
Thank you. Yes. Well, actually, it's like nanganak ako. This bill is kind of like half a decade in the making for me. I started it a few years before I ended my term in the Senate, and we actually passed it in the Senate. This was inspired not just by my personal experiences, because I also went on maternity leave, but my chief of staff, my deputy chief of staff, I actually gave them extended leave in the office, even nung wala pa. Because nakita ko na when they come back, just like when I went back when my baby was 2 months old, parang kulang pa. So I really felt like that extra 1 month, at 3 months, a baby is sitting, not sitting, but can kind of hold his head upright. So I was like, that makes a big difference to a mom na iniwan mong nakaganon at iniwan mong nakaganyan. So we worked on it, and yun nga, it didn't become a law because the House of Representatives at that time didn't have a version. So I had to refile it when I went to the House of Representatives, and I actually thought that it's a simple and easy bill. Pero I guess there were actually oppositions coming from different sides, primarily employers tend to be very conservative about anything that changes yung benefits. So dun pala nanggagaling yun. But eventually we passed it, and then yun nga, it goes through a process. So now that there's social media, everyone's like, when it's rebelo, manganganak na ako.
Pero ma'am,
So
like,
happy.
why is it 105 days? Kasi diba, the International Labor Organization only recommends like 98 days.
Yes.
And then nasan ba tayo sa buong mundo when we compare it with other countries?
That's interesting because kaya yung bill na final ko in the Senate was 100 days because yung international requirement is 98. Sabi ko, napaka-odd naman yung 98. Gawin na nating 100.
May butal pa, no?
Yeah, may butal. And then even at that, they were saying, bakit sumobra pa? Sabi ko, patawarin naman. Bigay nyo na sa mga nanay yung plus 2 days. So the House also had different version. The Senate actually passed eventually 120 days. Nung nasa House na ako, sila nag-pass sila ng 120. But when we met in BICAM, kasi nga, may repercussions yun, di ba? May magbabayad, wala namang libre sa mundo. So between the employer and government, sabi natin, sige, compromise, let's make it 105.
So sino po ang mga eligible dito sa extended maternity?
Yeah, so both private and publicly employed women will be covered. So kung government ka, teacher ka, sa national government, local government, lahat yan covered. And then kung private ka naman, covered din naman lahat. But just so that everybody knows, meron din exceptions. The usual exemptions, yung mga micro-businesses,
less than
yung
10
mga less than 10
workers,
employees, o ganon. But so basically, covered naman lahat.
But then, syempre, like what you mentioned kanina, merong mga fears din yung mga ibang sectors. Let's listen to one of the businessmen who talked about it recently. Okay, so some of the concerns lang yung binanggit nga, ma. Una muna, ma'am, yung this might discriminate women because some of the employers might not hire kasi nga daw less working days, or how do you address that?
Alam mo, sa una pa lang naman, kasi kami, we conduct hearings din, no? So, that was brought to our attention. And I always say, you know what, with all due respect, the women employees are about 50% of the workforce. The time has passed. Nasasabihin mong hindi ka mag-hire ng babae, di ba? Pasado na yon. Kumbaga, employers know that they need the skill that women bring to the workforce. So it's more of step it up and just bite the bullet and deal with the reality that women have dual roles in society. These dual roles require that they now work even though they still have their motherly duties at home. So nanay pa rin sila, manganganak pa rin sila. Kahit na gaano ka-supportive yung asawa mo, hindi nila kayang kargahin yung baby dun sa tiyan mo. At pag pinalabas mo yan at ganun pa rin sila ka-supportive, hindi rin naman sila magpapadede. Hindi din naman sila nagre-recover, di ba? So, sabi ko, you know, until the time comes na kaya ng lalaking manganak, mabuntis, manganak, magpadede, tulungan. This is not going to be the end. Kailangan pa rin natin ipagpatuloy to look for what other means can we help the family as an organic social institution to be able to still do everything a family is required, but for the acknowledgement that the women will be out in the workforce. Kasi totoong mangyayari. And so, yes, I know na affected ang employer, whether the employer is a private employer or the government, but it's something we need to deal with.
But let's also discuss, kasi parang yung difference dun sa pwedeng ibigay for the SSS benefits, the employers would have to shoulder that, di ba?
Yes, so basically the way it works, the way we worded it in our law, yung objective ko kasi nung dinraft ko pa lang to was a lot of women. Nagkataon kasi sa personal experience ko, yung law office na pinagtatrabahuan ko, binigay nila yung buong salary ko. So sa personal experience ko, hindi ko alam na yung iba pala, hindi nakakatanggap ng buo. At that time, imagine mo, abogado na ako, and yet, wipe out yung salary ko by the time yung anak ko, 1-year-old na, sa dami ng gastos. This is a true story. Yes. Sabi ko, shucks, ganito palang magka-baby, magka-anak. So, nung nalaman ko na the law pala only requires that yung SSS will cover a certain maximum provided by SSS. Ha? So, kung yung sinisweldo mo is more than that, sorry ka na lang. Walang obligation ang employer na bayaran yung difference. That's why sa law, pinasok ko, ako talaga kailangan fully paid because ang liit na nga ng sweldo mo, tapos magli-leave ka, maraming papasok na hindi nila tatapusin yung leave. That's what I didn't want to happen. I didn't want women to be forced to go back to work, not because they want to leave their baby, but because wala nang pera eh. Kailangan ko nang bumalik. I want na magamit nila yung buong 100 days na yan.
And also no limit to the number of children, ano?
No limit. Well, I have to be honest. My personal position there was okay lang yung mag-limit kasi I'm a family planning advocate. Pero yun yung naging decision ng majority. Ganyan naman kami sa Congress, di ba? It has to be a majority decision. Can I just go back lang dun sa pay yung limit para lang alam din ng mga employers na nakikinig? So, as of today, SSS maximum cap is 16,000. So the reality is 75% of the workforce are minimum wage earners. Therefore, wala namang idadagdag ang employer. Kaya karamihan din ng fears ng employers will not happen kasi ang minimum wage earners covered na ng SSS. However, pagdating sa let's say supervisor, let's say ang sweldo is 20,000. Yung 4,000 na hindi covered ng SSS, yun lang ang idadagdag nila. And then, I have good news din sa employers. Kausap ko SSS, yung matagal na lang pinaplano, implement na rin nila. Yung cap na yun, na sinasabi ko 16,000, dadagdagan nila. So, it's just a matter of time na pati mga kumikita ng mga 20,000, probably even more, 25, covered na rin ng SSS yun. So, kung anong idadagdag ng employer, parang sobrang minimal na lang. Siguro dun sa mga manager and VP mo na lang yan.
And labor officials are also admitting that the biggest challenge now is monitoring compliance. How will...
Yes. Well, it's not as if we haven't been doing this for decades, right? Yung compliance naman na yun, is a step up lang. Pero hindi naman gulat ang mga employers in the sense that, what is this? We don't know what you're talking about. No, they know. This is maternity leave. Hello, it's been around. Dinagdagan lang natin.
Okay, from the law that has been passed, we'll talk about your priority legislation naman when you go back to the Senate, if and when you win. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Still to come, her stand on federalism, charter change, and lowering of criminal age of responsibility. Senatorial candidate Pia Cayetano will still be with us after the break. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, senatorial candidate and House Deputy Speaker Pia Cayetano. You're doing very well in surveys. The last one, you're ranked 3 to 6. Number 2 ka pa. So how is your campaign going on now?
Well, actually, when I ran the second time for the Senate in 2010, so this is my 3rd Senate run, I'm blessed to have that opportunity to be a re-electionist. So nagagamit ko yung time na yun to actually use it more like a listening. Para ako nag-hearing. Nagtatanong ako sa mga tao na what are the concerns I need to know about, like laws that I pass, are there things that should be amended? So I actually don't go out there and vote for me. Talagang para ako nag-ocular inspection, nagli-listening tour, which I really like to do. And then at the same time, nasi-share ko din yung advocacy. I want to say what I've been doing ever since it started. Tinatarget ko lahat ng mga health workers, and I've been talking about the importance of vaccination because Tama-tama nag-start yung campaign namin at the height of the outbreak of measles. And the thing is kasi, Ruth, I lost a child. So, sinishare ko yun with all of them, even local government officials. I tell them how this will break any mother's heart. And a lot of these young mothers don't realize the importance of vaccination. Pero lahat ng kausap ko, from the health workers to the doctors, everybody else has been vaccinated. So, di ba may mga peklat kayo dito? We've all been vaccinated, and yet here these young mothers suddenly confused as to whether vaccination is that important. So, that is unacceptable, you know? And this is just measles. All those other sicknesses have a potential of having an outbreak. This is really bad. So talagang...
Very passionate about that.
I am. That's like what I talk about. In fact, I talked about it on the first day of our opening salvo in Pampanga. And Governor Lilia Pineda pulled me aside after my speech and sabi niya, talagang ano ka pala dun, iimbitahin kita ha, kasi problema namin yan sa Central Luzon. And sure enough, inimbita niya ako. So bumalik ako and I met them in the stakeholders meeting. Kinuwentohan ka pati mga, basta lahat ng nandun.
But do you think naka-apekto nga yung controversy with the dengue vaccine?
100% yes. That's the reason. Because yung ating vaccination rate naman is pretty much up there. I mean, you know, it dips once in a while, but not to a scary level. It really dipped. Talagang nag-dive in. Pagkausap ko yung health workers, sinasabi ko, so totoo ba na yung mga mothers hindi na dinala yung mga anak sa center? Lahat sila, oo, like resoundingly oo. And I started discussing this late last year pa, before nagka-outbreak, because I'm the author of the mandatory immunization law, which was one of the very first laws that I passed when I was a neophyte senator. Kaya talagang passionate ako about that. And again, why? It's based on my personal experiences. Yun nga, nagkasan ako who would not be saved by any kind of vaccination.
Some lawmakers like Senator Risa Ontiveros is blaming naman that issue on PAO Chief Percy de Acosta and the way she handled
This is the reality. Politicians need to be careful about the statements we make. The reality is, if this whole Dengvaxia was handled hush-hush, then of course people would not really know about it and we could move on. But can that happen? You know, it's a balancing of information and also not causing a panic, diba? So I think at the end of the day, we should all be responsible in what we say and how we act, but also at this very moment in time, I always tell the people na, alam mo, right now, wag natin pag-usapan yung Dengvaxia. Pag-usapan natin yung bakuna that has been around for decades, na lahat na tayong nag-uusap dito ay nabakunahan na. So let's forget about that momentarily.
Okay, let's go back to the campaign. You were endorsed both by President Duterte and the daughter, Sara Duterte. What do these endorsements mean for you in your campaign?
Well, as early as 2004, the very first time I ran, I've had the benefit of running during the presidential campaign. So I have always been endorsed by a presidential candidate. So this time naman, it's not a presidential year, but the president and his daughter Sarah have been going around helping the candidates that they include in their lineup. So, of course, for candidates, it's also beneficial. And there's also local endorsements. So wherever we go, syempre, it always helps. Like even me, I also endorse some of my colleagues na I feel like, you know, I want to work with these people. So ganun talaga yun. I mean, human beings like to be backed up by people they think other people will listen to.
But can you describe your relationship with the president himself, President Duterte? Yeah.
Well, as early as 2003, nung nagpe-prepare pa lang ako tumakbo for my first election, President, then Mayor Duterte, was one of the first local chief executives that I visited kasi friend siya ng tatay ko. And that developed into a friendship. So over the years, throughout my term in the Senate, I would go back to him, kwentuhan, to ask for his advice, and basically kwentuhan lang. And that's why in 2016, when he ran with my brother, I would be in and out of their campaign, helping out, giving my advice also. So meron naman kaming relationship na ganon. But again, I'm not in the executive, so I don't really see him as often as I would like. I would love to chat with him more. Pero, so ngayon parang mas makikita ko pa siya kasi nagka-campaign nga siya for us. But that's why when I saw him, there's footage on that. Niyakap ko talaga siya. Nagpasalamat talaga ako dito sa maternity leave. And, you know, some people in social media are a little bit ignorant and they say like, ba't kailangan pasalamatan ng presidente? So for the information of the viewers, the president has the right to veto or to approve any law. So at any point in time, kakampi mo o kalaban mo yung presidente na mag-a-approve o mag-veto ng batas mo, di tama lang naman as a respectful person, magpasalamat ka dun sa batas, especially since alam ko talagang may lobby, di ba?
You're known as a women's rights advocate. You have also allies in hugpong na sila. You have Amy Marcos, Cynthia Villar, but then some of the most vocal critics of the president are women. You have Vice President Leni Robredo, you have former CJ Sereno, Senator Laila de Lima. How do you feel about it?
Well, the critics have nothing to do with being a woman or not a woman. I mean, you can be a critic, you can be a supporter, whether you're a man or a woman. So, wala naman pinagkaiba sa akin yon. The point is, in all the 12 years that I was a senator, how many presidents yung pinagdaanan ko, I always found myself in a position where hanggat kakayanin ko, tinatry ko namang intindihin kung saan nanggagaling yung presidente at kung ano yung kaya kong isupport. Yun naman ako eh. Kaya, tinan mo kami ni Alan, magkaibang-iba, diba? Yun talaga, bakbak yan from the very start. Ako yung type na, paano ako makakatulong? Paano makakatulong? Ganun naman ako parate. And if there are points of disagreement, you will also see, and well, you've been in the Senate, no? You'll also see that I'm the type who will try to work in the background, like, paano ba natin to aayusin? Pwede ba ako magbigay ng advice? Ganun yung style ko.
And we'll talk more about your campaign and other issues. We'll take a break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, senatorial candidate and House Deputy Speaker Pia Cayetano. Ma'am, balikan ko lang yung statement nyo kanina na sabi nyo, you want to understand the president from where he's coming from with certain issues, hanggang saan nyo susuportahan ng presidente?
Siyempre, hanggang dulo ng term niya. Of course.
And in terms of issues like, the war on drugs? And
okay, no, so let me make it clear. I support the president all the way, all the way. It doesn't mean that every policy, yes ako ng yes. Every policy, it's my job as a senator and a member of Congress to debate that. And he knows that. Tanggap niya yun. Kaya nga, if you listen to what he said, sabi niya, si Pia, wala kayong masabi dyan. Basta pagdating sa mga issues, inaaral niya yan, nag-aaral yan. Tapos, he didn't continue his sentence, but he says, parang guiding light yan. Which I thought I take it as an honor that sabihin niyang parang guiding light ako. Kasi the times that we do have to talk, I do tell him my points of view. So when I say I support, what that means is, I understand his vision. Kasi yung vision niya for me is very clear. It's just the means to get there.
Okay, minimum age of criminal responsibility.
That's a long story. You don't have enough time for me for that. But long story short,
Anong age?
In the House of Representatives, the version that I worked on for a whole year and got passed was maintaining the age of 15. And I was able to convince yung mga authors kasi alam ko na ang gusto nila at gusto din ng presidente, accountability. Accountability kasi wala eh. Under the existing law, ang requirement is ibalik agad sa family. This is where I'm coming from. And again, I speak from experience as a mother. Bakit mo ibabalik sa bahay na kaya nga kaladkarin at nasa kalye ang batang yan? Is there's probably no responsibility in that home. So, yun yung in-address ko yung process. And pumasa yun. Unfortunately, nung nagka-change of leadership in the House, medyo nabaliwala na yung committee report namin na yun. So they changed it again and they actually came up with a 9-year version, which I really had difficulty supporting. I really told former President, now Speaker Jimmy, na ma'am, I'm sorry, I cannot support that. They ended up with 12, but the point is, my version is this. It doesn't matter what the age is. You need to have accountability. You cannot let any child, I have an 8-year-old, there needs to be accountability.
Pero, clarifying lang, yung 12 years old, are you supporting that?
My answer is this way. Because I know if it doesn't finish in the Senate, I will have the chance to debate it when I become a senator, right? Sa akin, it's not a matter of age. It's a question of, may accountability ba yung batang yan? Because even a 4-year-old, we teach them the rules. Yun yung galit na galit si Presidente. Walang accountability to mga batang to because they do something bad and all that happens is they go back to their families who most likely were not disciplining them in the first place. That's why I always sabi ko, I cannot explain this in 1 minute. Kasi sa akin, I fully support what the President and a lot of local chief executives, what people don't know, yung mga galit sa lowering of the age, they don't realize that the local chief executives, because I talked to my colleagues, many of whom were governors and mayors, gusto nilang i-lower kasi nga, wala silang magawa
They're
sa mga
responsible.
bata.
Okay, ma'am, let's talk about other issues.
Sure.
Federalism, charter change, do you support it?
All of these things, I believe, are perfect for lengthy and deep debates. So it's not something that can be rushed. That's why in the House, I kind of also felt bad that it was something like papak-pak, pinasa. Di ako sanay sa ganon because my comfort level is the Senate, where we really take time to discuss and debate these issues. So yes, bring it on because it should be debated. There are members of our population who love it passionately, and we need to hear all of those. And then may downside ba?
Yeah.
Kailangan din natin pakinggan.
We can't let you go without talking about anti-dynasty bill because there are several Cayetanos.
Sure,
your brother and your sister-in-law are both running for Congress, and another brother for Alino for mayor.
Yes, this has always been my position, and people have told me that they don't agree with me, and that's perfectly fine. All over the world, makakakita tayo ng mga members of whether it's parliament or local government with the same family name related to each other. I have always believed that people should be judged by their character, by the kind of service that they can deliver. If the majority of the Filipinos decide na there should be a clear-cut law, like no 2 degrees or 3 degrees, of course we will comply. Pero kung ako yung tinatanong, sinasabi ko, tingnan mo yung service, di ba? I'm more interested in really seeing people go to jail for corrupt practices.
So you won't support yung anti-political dynasty bill if ever?
I'm always open. Like, if that's what the majority wants, I will never stand in that way. Never.
Okay, thank you very much, and good luck to Pia Cayetano. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Ruth Cabal. You're watching CNN Philippines.